do the value work first and then worry about pricing. So value-based pricing is 90% value, 10% price. So if you want to do that very well, value first, then price.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Today's podcast is sponsored by Jennings Executive Search. I had a great conversation with John Jennings about the skills needed in different pricing roles. He and I think a lot alike. If you're looking for a new pricing role, or if you're trying to hire just the right pricing person, I strongly suggest you reach out to Jennings Executive Search. They specialize in placing pricing people. Say that 3 times fast. Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the segmented relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving, and our guest today is Stephan Liozu. Here are 3 things you want to know about Stephan before we start. He is the founder of Value Interruption Advisors. He's been running that for 12 years now, I think. Co-founder of Pricing for the Planet. Fascinating. And believe it or not, he was born in the Pyrenees between Spain and France, and he watched the Tour de France when he was growing up. Welcome, Stephan.
Hey, great. Great to be here. The Tour de France was the moment of the year we all waited for as a kid.
So what always seems so funny to me about the people watching, the spectators, is that there's this, it's a 3-week race, and you get 10 seconds to watch them ride by.
Right. But, there's a lot of festivities around that. You have caravans and they throw candies, and it's like a parade. And then eventually the racers come in and then they disappear. But there's music, and so you're a kid. It's like a festival. You're hanging around the place all day. And now when you watch the finish on the Champs-Élysées in Paris, then you can't blink because they go around like 2 or 3 times. But really, if you miss it, you miss it.
Right. So, hey, let's jump into pricing. And before we start on the topic we're really going to talk about, let me just ask, how'd you get into pricing?
I fell into pricing in 1998. I was working for a company called Owens Corning, and I was the business deployment leader for SAP in Europe. And I was in charge of the pricing module, and then worked on, the discounting structure and the rebate structure and all these fascinating components of pricing. And then I just fell in it, and I became very interested in it. And from there, I became, much more involved and eventually became a full-time pricing, thought leader, or whatever you call it, not an expert for sure, but a shaper. And
So what about pricing do you think dragged you in?
Well, it's not really pricing for me. It's really pricing as a mechanism to drive profit. And my career was actually as a business executive, all the way to becoming a CEO. And I realized the power of pricing, specifically performance-based pricing, value-based pricing, because most of the business I was involved in were very highly differentiated business, and you can do cost plus. So I was very intrigued as an executive, and then became very interested in quantification, dollarization, and then to the point where I decided to get a PhD on the topic of value-based pricing, and then that was history from there. I just, jumped out of the corporate world and focused on that.
Yeah. I find this field amazingly fascinating. So what we're going to talk about today is customer segmentation and pricing. I tell you what, let me just toss the softball out.
All right.
I can tell you as we go through this, I'm going to share with you my frameworks on how I think about segmentation, and I can't wait to hear your frameworks and see if we can make them align or see where they align. But what do you think of customer segmentation and value-based pricing?
Well, step number 2 of value-based pricing is about segmenting your customer base on variables that are different from thermographics. So you would use preferences, behaviors, needs and wants, why they purchase from you. So it's customer needs segmentation. And And, frankly, you can't give every customer the same level of service, the same level of attention. So you really have to put them in separate segments to, and I call segmentation for me a cost optimization process where you're going to allocate your resources better based on why the customer buying from you. But this is, again, one of the foundation of value-based pricing is do good customer segmentation.
Yeah, I often think at the lowest level for me, segmentation, there's two basic types. There's one type that says I'm going to charge two different prices for the exact same product. And so think of seats in an airplane, right? And then there's segmentation that says I'm going to create different products so that I can charge different amounts of money to people who have different willingnesses to pay. And so think about first class versus economy in an airplane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think, I look at segmentation, and, for me, it's all about reuse. Try to reuse as much of your existing product assets, and, across segments. So, it's a little bit about platform thinking. You may have a good, better, best, type of a platform thinking where you have modules that you add. It's also, creating bundles. So as you mentioned, the same product, but you have different levels of service and data, and software around it. So you're really creating more full offers versus the bare product, depending on what the customer want. Do they want a full service? Do they want just a product? So, and really at the end of the day, this is why you need to understand, the reasons they buy from you. What exactly do they want? Do they want service? Do they want quality? Do they want price? And unfortunately, when you look at the methodology of value-based pricing, it's one of the most neglected step is, hey, either I do at the customer level, which is impossible to do for 2,000 customers, or I do one size fits all. I'm going to do one value model for the entire customer base. So you would start at the customer level, but very quickly you have to elevate your quantification work at the segment level. It's one of these steps that is rather difficult. But there's so many types of segmentation. So when I do training on segmentation, I have to remind my audience that there is 6 types of segmentation, and you have to know which one you're doing. So between strategic segmentation, price segmentation, product segmentation, market segmentation, it's not the same. And you have to choose the right one, which in value-based pricing is customer segmentation.
So define customer segmentation from what you were just talking about. And by the way, I want to hear about all 6.
Right.
But specifically, what is customer segmentation?
Well, first of all, the word customer is, refers to a population. So how do you define your population, right? So your population for me so there are different ways of doing a segmentation. It could be active customers only. It could be active and passive customers. It could be your current customers plus the prospects and the lost customers. So, and pretty much I define that as the list of the population of potential buyers for you, right? So, and that includes lost prospects, current, whether they're active or, inactive. So it's your entire customer population. Now I've done segmentation for active customers only. That's possible. It's more of an account segmentation, if you ask me, and not a customer population segmentation. So, these are questions that I ask, my clients when I do segmentation work. What exactly you want to do? Because, if you're only addressing 50% of the market, it's not really a customer segmentation. It's going to be your account segmentation, active account segmentation, which is different from market segmentation.
Yeah. So as you were describing that, here's what came to mind or jumped to mind quickly for me. And that is in the world of SaaS, we often have new customers. So people who've never bought from us before. Mm-hmm. And I would treat them very differently from existing customers that I'm trying to upsell or cross-sell new products to because they're my current customer base, or even existing customers who I want to keep from churning because their mm-hmm. usage is low. And I would think of that as customer segmentation. Does that fit in that description for you? Well,
theoretically, when you segment a customer base, so you look at your TAM and your addressable market, and you would say, well, this is the population of my target population, right? And obviously you have an existing customer base, but you're going to try to project what's in the existing outside in the market by doing your customer profiles, your ideal customer profiles and, all that good stuff. And then you find new customers and you qualify them as they come in. Are these going to be value buyers, price buyers? Are they going to be buying the full suite, the enterprise suite, or are they going to buy only a base and a module, a good, better, best type? But for me, I see that process as an integrated process where you industrialize your qualification and increase the velocity of your, sales engine. But you need to qualify fast. So, now and your prospects become part of the base, right? And then you learn, obviously you have cohorts and you learn more as you're doing, and it adjust your, potentially new segments come in, so, it's for both. I mean, I would say it's a population that you're segmenting.
Okay. Recently I've started thinking to myself, I don't really care about pricing. I care much more about value.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I were to ask you to sprinkle value onto your customer segmentation, how would you do that?
Well, so typically when you start the process of your customer segmentation, and now define customers as the population, prospects, and current accounts, I would look at, always on the value and price spectrum. How do they position themselves? Are they value buyers? Are they price buyer? And then even within the value buyers, are they more technical value buyers, or are they full value buyers, or they want the full experience? So the first discussion I have with my client is, try to think about these two extreme in the spectrum. Because chances are there's always going to be these two dimensions are going to be very important in the market, right? In the customer base. And in between the two, you will have other types of segments, like the partnership seekers, the quality seekers, maybe, the service intensive customers. So whatever it is. And usually I go anywhere from 3 to 8 segments that you could manage through what I call a data enriched qualitative segmentation. And then, at the end of the day, when you look at your segments, you will have different intensity of their value requirement and value perceptions. And that's where value for me is quite important, because you need to find these segments that will be extremely sensitive to your value strategies, your value messages, and usually it will be around 15 to 25% of your population. The rest might be more price sensitive at different degree of price sensitivity. So, and this group of value buyers, whether they are aspiring value buyer or, key value buyer, value partners, whatever you call them, this is where your resources are going. This is where, when you start looking at how do I service these accounts? How do I manage them? How do I sell to them? What are my cost to serve considerations? This is where I'm reallocating my resources, because in theory they are the one willing to pay for the value delivered to them. So it's a reallocation of resources, but you need to understand what they value, why they value it, and how much of that value they are willing to pay for. So and you have to find these 15 to 25%. This is the rule of thumb. You will have anywhere between 40 and 50% of price buyers, and then 15 to 25% of value buyers in any customer population.
Okay. So you and I define or think of value slightly differently. I'm sure we don't, but when I say sprinkle value on top, I always, in my head, buyers trade money for value, period. Right. So even a price buyer needs value before they're going to give us money. And so the question in my head is always, well, what is that value? How much value do they need? How do I define that value?
Yeah. So for me, the price buyer, the value is the price reduction. It's a short-term savings, and value becomes, hey, how much can you save me today? Right. And that's through the discount. Where a value buyer is, hey, what's my long-term value? What's my ROI? What's my, the share of the value pool I'm going to get? So now that doesn't mean that price buyers don't have any other needs. This is what I do, kind of a spectrum of price buying. You have the kamikaze, opportunistic price buyer, And you have strategic price buyers, and maybe that are extremely price sensitive, but they also look at product quality, for example, right? So the spectrum is different for every account. This is why I believe in qualitative segmentation with data supporting it, and then you have to find these nuances in these categories of customers that, like you said, some price buyers may want something else than just a short-term discount. There is different behaviors there in price buying.
So what do you think of market segmentation, and how is this different?
Well, for me, market segmentation is what verticals am I going to embrace? So if you're a SaaS company and you say, well, I'm gonna work on healthcare, I'm gonna work on automotive, and I'm gonna study the end use application that I can pursue. So you would do a prioritization metrics for specific end use market and application within the end use, and that would become my overall market target, right? So this is where it's in my definition, and I'm not saying I'm extremely right, but markets are different from customers, right? And market is all about my priorities on where do I want to play, right? And look at IoT. If you do IoT, there's potentially thousands and thousands of applications you could use IoT in. Now you're going to look at the verticals, and you're going to look at applications that you could use IoT for, and that's going to be your core market, because it's, as you know, very important to focus on your most attractive end use. And then from there, you would go into listing the potential customers. What's my ideal customer profile within an end use application? So if you say oil and gas predictive maintenance, well, what's my ICP, right?
Yeah, I think in this one we 100% agree, in the sense that defining your market segments up front allow you then to make some really good decisions about, I'm going to create a different package for this market segment versus that market segment.
Correct.
I'll use different pricing metrics. I'll use different marketing messages. So definitely wanting to understand that market segmentation first, which is very different than customer segmentation, price segmentation, whatever else we want to look at there.
Yeah, and even strategic segmentation. When you look, you do your long range plan, your long term strategy. You may have strategic positions that you want to take. You may say, for example, I don't want to play in Asia, all right, because it's too dangerous, or it's too far, or I don't have the skills, or I don't want to play in infrastructure markets so you're defining the sandbox of your strategic long-range plan. So these are all those different types of segmentation that, frankly, you go in companies, they use them. Everything is segmentation. And I think it's important to educate them on, the various types of segmentations. And we haven't mentioned product segmentation, segmenting your market on the type of products. So, which is, it's not that they're wrong. It's just different things.
How do you think about product segmentation? I usually think of product packaging as a response to how I want to do segmentation, not that I'm using my product, not that I'm segmenting my products, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, but if you look at in the equipment business or the pure product business, we will look at light product, heavy product. What customer needs a heavy product? What customer needs a light project or a product? So, I used to do a lot of work in the defense and military sector when I was with Thales, and we have the land customer who want the small radar, the air customer who wants it. And it's like you said, product is a result of the segment and not vice versa. And what if you have a land and the sea customers that's a value buyer, and then they want to buy all of it? How do you handle this, right? So, but if you're dealing with engineers and product managers, it's a switch. They're very structured, but they've used product segmentation or technology segmentation for a long time. And now we're telling them, think about behavior, think about needs and preferences, how they buy, the frequency of buying. And it takes a while to convince them.
Yeah, I think what you're saying isn't just limited to hardware companies, but we see it a lot in hardware companies. Yeah. And that is that we focus so much on our products that we stop focusing on the market. We stop focusing on the customers. In software, I think they focus a little more on customers only because the products can change quickly. And in hardware, they don't change quickly. It's like, hey, it took us a long time to build this, design it, get it developed and into manufacturing.
So what I see more in software is, along the scaling, they've creating a monster, a one size fit all monster of a software that is not, adaptable, or, you can create these different modules of it. So they don't think in terms of module. I've seen many software companies that have helped with segmentation. And when I ask them, can you feature gate this? Can you separate that? And they can't. The engineering was done in the product so that it's one platform. And it becomes super complicated for some customers that maybe have low maturity, or they don't need the entire, package. And then it's difficult to do good, better, best. You could do usage with tiers, but when you get into good, better, best, they can't, restructure the product, and it's a limitation. It's a real limitation in software. So when they design their product roadmap, I really encourage them to think in terms of platforms and modules.
And by the way, they often can't do usage because they didn't program in the fact that they're going to monitor usage in their software package.
But you could add a licensing and entitlement package, or kind of a metering system that will help you. But at the end of the day, you're still going to sell the whole solution, and you're going to have a huge adoption issue. And I see that, too complex, customers don't adopt it, then they don't ramp up scale, and then they churn.
Yeah. So the two recommendations I always give to software companies, development, is monitor usage and gate all of the features.
Right. That gating is essential.
Because it makes it really easy for us to create new packages if we have it gated. And if we don't, it makes it practically impossible.
Yeah. Unless we redesign it completely, which we don't want to do.
Right.
So yeah, this is why it's I would say, most companies have started, they do business without segmentation. And now we're asking them, okay, you move to value-based pricing, or you're going to move to a different packaging strategy. And they're constrained. They're constrained by their existing structure, by their engineering and product design, and whether it's equipment or software, or, you name it. And it's difficult to go back and redesign products. So then, how do we do this? Through the innovation process, try to do engineering a different way. But it's complex, and I've seen great segmentation strategies that cannot be operationalized for that reason. And I ask engineers, dumb down the product, make it worse. And they look at me, I cannot make a product worse. Not going to happen in my culture. Well,
yeah. One of the things we used to do in semiconductors quite a bit is we would ship the exact same semiconductor with a different spec sheet, a different data sheet. Doesn't matter if it actually ran faster than we said it did. We just said it ran this fast. And so you didn't really have to change the product. You just had to change what you committed to.
Yeah. So like you said, you could use warranties, same product, different, maybe, the tolerance levels or the quality levels, you make them a little different. Warranties are different, but more and more procurement teams are very, very smart. They'll be able to reverse engineer your products and study your data sheets and conclude it's the same. Now, in some less sophisticated, more fragmented market, maybe they're not able to do this. So it depends on the sophistication of your markets. And then you give away a lot of cost, potentially to customers who are not willing to pay for it. And you give the same product, as long as you can reduce the cost to serve on service and maybe, supply chain, then maybe there is a potential, opportunity there. But if you give the exact same, then you're going to have margins different that, you're going to have to explain.
Yep.
So, I do quite a bit of segmentation. It takes a courageous C-suite and go-to-market leader to do this, because you're really looking at your entire go-to-market and including, what you sell, how you sell, all your service rules, your cost to serve allocation, all that stuff. And I've only seen in my experience a few companies are able to go all the way to really operationalize a good customer segmentation and include it in the ERP, CRM, and all their automation engine there. And most of the time they cannot be operationalized because of lack of courage or lack of systems, or processes are too manually driven.
Yeah, I deal with small and mid-sized companies mostly. And what I often do with my clients is I say, let's go find one market segment, right? Let's find a market segment that has a higher willingness to pay than we're getting today, and see if we can craft the right product portfolio, the right products, the right messaging, and go after a single market segment. Keep doing what you're doing for everybody else, but let's go after one market segment. And that success then leads to, okay, now we can go do that again.
Yeah, no, that's, builds confidence for sure. Give them a roadmap to operationalize it. I've worked with micro SaaS companies that are starting, and it's just, they look at the market and the segmentation as it's such a big space, and it's very difficult for them to really contextualize, where are we going? There's so many applications and so many, and different ways of looking at markets. And, whether you want to be an enterprise, on a PLG, SLG, you want to be an enterprise player, full solution, there's so many options that, I think what you're saying is important. Pick one market, focus on it, find your ICP, and then get a few logos, see what happens, how, the friction in the selling process, your ability to get price. And not, do a segmentation that is going to boil the ocean, because we keep going back to it and then changing it, and not much gets done.
Yeah. And so two other quick comments. One, I often find that people are afraid to focus on a market segment because that means I'm not selling to everybody else.
Correct.
Right. And so that's hugely painful. And number two, I don't see this as a problem. People don't usually do this, but I would never recommend it. And that is when you first launch a product, to go after multiple market segments. It's like, pick one segment, go after it, be successful.
Yeah. And that's the F word, right? The other F word, focus. It's, following the shiny object. For every lead is a good lead. You do your marketing, lead management, and all these leads that come in, and you just want to, quote for them, and then you customize, and then you do demos that shouldn't be done, and it just slows you down. And I see more and more companies going stealth, and focusing on one market segment, and then not publishing to the world, not attracting all these, potential leads, and going stealth into a segment and then see how it goes. But the focusing is number one priority. And this is where most likely the founders will be, oh, we need to sell, we need logos, let's go and find them. And then exactly what you're saying, it's all over the map, it's distracting. You're over customizing your product, and you're losing that structure. So I would tell them, let's pick at least two or three. Let's not go everywhere, but let's say no to a lot more opportunities and focus on that segment.
Yeah. So I would highly recommend against customizing any product, by the way, period. That's the end, right? Don't customize it unless that's your business as custom products. And number two is, when you focus, this is one of my favorite lines, when you focus on a market segment and somebody in a different segment comes to you and says, can I buy your product? You're allowed to say yes. The whole point is we're not focusing on chasing them, building products for them, marketing to them. It's like, you can still sell to them when they come ask.
Yeah.
Just don't customize for them.
Yeah, but then that assume that your product is ready. And most, as most startup will still do product development as they sell. And then they get that feedback from all these accounts they shouldn't sell to. And then, do things for these because they need the logos, right? So it's kind of a chicken and egg. And it cannot be perfect. It'll never be perfect, but I think you need to understand your market, your addressable market, your heart of your segmentation a little bit so that you could, position yourself in a way. And it goes back to, the customer problem you're solving, the attractiveness of market segment based on that problem, the willingness to pay of that market segment. And you probably know that, but not many startups are actually having that discussion in depth and validating through research.
We are running out of time. So let me ask you the final question. What's one piece of pricing advice you'd give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
Do the value work first and then worry about pricing. So value-based pricing is 90% value, 10% price. So if you want to do that very well, value first, then price.
Actually, I love that line. Value-based pricing is 90% value, 10% price. So nice. Stephan, thank you so much for your time today. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
DM me on LinkedIn, connect with me, and that's the best way to get me.
Excellent. And to our listeners, thank you for your time. If you enjoyed this, would you please leave us a rating and a review? And if you have any questions or comments about this podcast or pricing in general, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact. Thanks again to Jennings Executive Search for sponsoring our podcast. If you're looking to hire someone in pricing, I suggest you contact someone who knows pricing people. Contact Jennings Executive Search.